The humans had been warned. A huge fleet from the Galactic Coalition was heading straight for Earth. The alien ships were massive, hundreds of them, each one capable of destroying entire cities in the blink of an eye. For weeks, messages from the fleet's commanders had been flooding Earth's communication channels. They were here for a simple reason: to show Earth that they were too weak to survive. They wanted to make an example out of humanity, to remind every species in the galaxy that the Galactic Coalition ruled with an iron fist. The message from the fleet was clear: we are coming. You will bow before us. We will destroy your cities, take your resources, and teach you what it means to challenge the might of the Galactic Fleet. At first, Earth took the warning seriously. The government scrambled, trying to prepare for the worst. People were scared. The idea that an entire fleet was coming to destroy Earth was terrifying. Soldiers were put on high alert. Weapon systems were tested. Plans were made to evacuate key cities. But then, something unexpected happened. The world did not respond with fear. Instead, the world laughed. It started with a broadcast. The President of the United States, standing in front of a group of world leaders, gave a speech. Everyone expected the usual tone: serious, worried, perhaps even fearful. But that's not what happened. The president smiled, turned to the camera, and said, "We've just received a message from our visitors in the Galactic Fleet. They've come to teach us a lesson. I've got a lesson for them. Good luck. If they think they can just scare us into submission, they've got another thing coming." The leaders around the world were taken aback. Some didn't know how to respond. Others started to laugh. But it wasn't nervous laughter. It was genuine amusement. The idea that these distant, powerful aliens thought they could intimidate Earth seemed ridiculous. In Europe, a major news network broadcasted the president's speech to millions. The anchor, smiling, joked, "If they think they're going to scare us, they might want to try a different approach." "Who do they think we are?" The laughter spread. News stations, radio shows, and social media outlets exploded with memes, jokes, and sarcastic commentary about the alien fleet. Some joked about the aliens needing better tactics. Others poked fun at the idea that they could intimidate Earth's people. It was clear that humanity was not scared. If anything, they were mocking the very idea that they could be conquered. On the streets, people wore T-shirts with slogans like, "Welcome to Earth. We'll be laughing when you land." Local comedians turned the news into material for stand-up routines. In major cities, large public gatherings took place, where people watched the alien fleet approach on the big screens. Cracking jokes and making light of the situation, the aliens watching from their ships were completely confused. Their fleets, with their thousands of ships and powerful weapons, were meant to inspire terror. But instead, Earth's people were laughing. This was not what they had expected. They had assumed that humanity, like every other species they had encountered, would quake in fear. But this was something new. The humans didn't seem afraid. They were amused. The alien commanders who were watching all of this unfold were furious. They had designed their attack to be as intimidating as possible. Their ships were filled with the latest technology, weapons that could wipe out entire cities with ease. They had studied Earth's defenses, calculated how easily they could crush any resistance. They had done their research, and yet they were being laughed at. The commander of the fleet, an alien named Zoroth, stared at the human responses on his screen. He had been trained in tactics, strategy, and warfare, but he couldn't understand. He turned to his second-in-command. "Why are they not afraid?" Zoroth asked, his voice low and filled with frustration. "I don't know, sir," his second-in-command replied. "It appears that they are mocking us. This is not like any species we have ever encountered." Zoroth slammed his fist against the armrest of his chair. "This is absurd. We will not tolerate this disrespect. Prepare for the attack. We will show them their place." The fleet readied their weapons, but still, they couldn't understand why the humans were acting this way. In every other encounter, their enemies had trembled before them. What was different about Earth? Back on Earth, the atmosphere was anything but tense. People went about their daily lives, going to work, eating lunch, and enjoying their usual routines. The president held another press conference the next day, chuckling at the alien fleet's message. "I have one thing to say to the Galactic fleet," the president said, smiling broadly. "Bring it on," the laughter continued. Earth had made its stance clear. They were not going to bow to anyone, no matter how powerful they seemed. If the Galactic fleet's show of force had only made them the butt of jokes, and humanity was loving every minute of it. As the alien ships continued their approach, the world waited. The Galactic fleet may have had technology and weapons beyond human understanding, but the humans had something that the aliens had underestimated, something they couldn't intimidate or conquer. And it was about to become the alien fleet's worst nightmare. As the alien fleet drew closer, the entire world watched with bated breath. But still, the response from humanity was not what the aliens expected. They were waiting for the first signs of fear, the first whispers of panic, but none came. Earth remained calm, even confident. The humans had made it clear that they weren't afraid of the aliens. And now, the world was beginning to wonder, just how far could this boldness go? In the quietest corners of Earth, though, preparations were underway. The governments of the world had acted quickly when they first learned of the alien fleet's approach. However, they did not only rely on conventional military strategies. Something far more unique was being put into place, a weapon unlike anything the aliens had ever seen, while the world laughed and joked about the alien threat. A group of brilliant minds had been working on something that would turn the tide. These were not the high-ranking military leaders or top politicians, but rather scientists, engineers, and former soldiers who had been working in secret. They had known for years that Earth was vulnerable to a galaxy full of far more powerful species. They had been preparing for this very day. Their goal had been simple: to create a defense that would use Earth's own resources. Things that the aliens would never expect. They were tired of relying on traditional weapons, tired of being outmatched by fleets like the one that now loomed over Earth. What they needed was not brute force, but cleverness, the kind of creativity that humans were known for. The project they had been working on was nothing like the powerful alien ships that filled the skies. In fact, it looked almost laughable at first glance. Their weapon was a ship built from discarded materials. Old ships that had long since been retired and leftover tech from decades past. On the surface, it seemed like a junkyard creation. But the humans had done something extraordinary with it. This ship, made from what others considered outdated and useless, had been re-engineered in ways that no one had imagined. The design was unlike anything the alien fleet had. It wasn't fast, it wasn't large, and it didn't have the advanced weaponry that the aliens possessed. Instead, it was built to take advantage of something the humans were known for: thinking. Outside the box, the ship's core was powered by an ancient technology and energy source that had been left, forgotten in old archives. The team had reawakened it, and the results were astonishing. The ship could harness this energy in a way that no other race could. The materials it was made of, while seemingly inferior, were incredibly sturdy. What others saw as junk, humans had turned into something far more formidable. The most surprising part of the weapon, though, was its crew. The humans who had been chosen to pilot the ship were not seasoned soldiers or veterans of space battles. They were ordinary men and women engineers, scientists, and former pilots who had volunteered to face the unknown. They were ready to show the aliens that Earth wasn't a weak, defenseless world. In fact, they were about to prove that human resourcefulness could overcome even the greatest of odds. The ship was tested in secret. The results were better than anyone had hoped. The systems that were designed to be slow and inefficient had been modified, allowing the ship to move with surprising agility. The outdated weapons were fine-tuned and enhanced to deliver powerful strikes with pinpoint accuracy. The engineers had even found a way to make the ship seem invisible, too. The alien detection systems. The aliens would never see it coming, while the rest of the world laughed at the alien fleet. These brave men and women were preparing to face the real challenge. They knew that their ship, although unconventional, would be their last hope. Had no illusions of easy victory. The alien fleet was massive and powerful, but they also knew that if they succeeded, they would show the entire galaxy that humans were not to be underestimated. Back in the control room, The team's leader, Captain Evan Carter, stood in front of a massive screen, showing the approaching fleet. He was an unassuming man, not the type I would expect to command such an important mission. But Carter had a vision, and more than that, he had faith in the crew that had come together to make the impossible possible. "Are we ready?" he asked, his voice steady but filled with determination. The response came from his second-in-command, Lieutenant Maria Williams. "We're ready, Captain. All systems are green. Our ship may not look like much, but we've got what it takes to make them think twice." Captain Carter nodded, looking out at the screens as the alien fleet came closer. He knew the eyes of the world were upon them, but he also knew that what they were about to do wasn't for show. It was for humanity. It was for Earth. Meanwhile, the alien fleet continued its advance. The alien commanders, still puzzled by Earth's lack of fear, grew increasingly impatient. They were so sure of their superiority, and yet the humans were still not reacting in the way they expected. The fleet's commanders were determined to show Earth the true power of the Galactic Coalition. But they were about to discover something that would change their plans forever. As Earth's hidden weapon powered up, the entire world waited in silence. No one knew what was coming, but one thing was certain. This was no longer a fight for survival. It was a fight to show the aliens that humanity was not a species to be taken lightly. The day had finally come. The alien fleet, enormous and imposing, hovered above Earth, filling the sky with its shadow. Thousands of ships, each one capable of erasing entire cities, were ready to launch their attack. The Earth's leaders watched, their faces a mix of anxiety and determination. They had trusted their people's laughter and confidence. But now the moment of truth had arrived, in the quiet control room beneath the surface of the Earth. Captain Evan Carter stood tall, looking out at the screen that displayed the alien fleet in all its power. His heart raced, but he kept his focus. The time for jokes was over. They had prepared for this moment for months, and now it was up to him and his crew to prove that humanity could stand its ground. "We've got one chance," Carter said, turning to his crew. "Let's make it count." Lieutenant Maria Williams, his second-in-command, gave him a nod. She was calm, even as the hum of the engines filled the room, and the final preparations were being made. She wasn't worried about the alien technology or their fleet's massive size. She had seen the ship's power in action during the secret tests. Their ship might have been built from old, outdated technology, but in the hands of the right people, it was a force to be reckoned with. "All systems are green, Captain," Williams reported. "We're ready to go." Carter turned back to the screen, watching as the alien fleet continued to approach. The aliens didn't know it yet, but they were about to be in for a surprise. The humans had one thing that the Galactic fleet didn't: creativity. The ability to think outside the box, to do things the aliens wouldn't expect. As the alien ships moved closer, they broadcast their message once more. It echoed through every communication channel on Earth, a cold, threatening reminder of their strength. "Bow to us, or face destruction. Your time is over." The world didn't respond with fear. Instead, it stood silent, waiting for the battle. To begin, the humans had placed their trust in their secret weapon. And now it was time to see if it could live up to the challenge. With a deep breath, Carter gave the command, "Initiate the plan. Let's show them what we've got." The human-made ship, though small in comparison to the alien fleet, fired up its engines. The ship slowly moved forward, its old hull creaking but holding steady. The alien ships didn't take notice at first. After all, the humans were barely a blip on their radar. But the moment the ship started to move, something unexpected happened. The humans activated their weapon, a hidden feature built into the ship's outdated technology. The ship emitted a strange energy pulse that sent ripples through the surrounding area, distorting the alien fleet's sensors. The aliens, who prided themselves on their advanced technology, couldn't understand what was happening. The sensors that had always been reliable were suddenly malfunctioning. They couldn't see the humans clearly. The humans were no longer just a small, weak target. They were unpredictable. As the alien fleet tried to regain control of their systems, the human ship maneuvered with surprising speed. It wasn't fast by any standard, but it was enough to keep the aliens off balance. The ship zigzagged through the sky, dodging laser fire and using the surrounding debris to hide its movements. The first shots were fired. The human ship's weapons, though old and seemingly outdated, packed a punch. They were designed to be precise, not overwhelming, but they hit their targets with surprising accuracy. A few alien ships took direct hits, their shields failing under the pressure. Humans cheered, but they knew this was only the beginning. Carter didn't hesitate. All units engage. Keep them distracted and off balance. We need to buy time. Alien fleet, in shock, scrambled to retaliate. The powerful ships unleashed their weapons, sending blasts of energy toward the human ship. The humans fired back, using everything they had to keep the aliens from gaining the upper hand. Each attack from the humans sent ripples through the alien formations, making them unsure of their next move. They had expected the humans to panic, to run in fear. Instead, they were facing a determined, unpredictable enemy that was willing. To fight back, the humans had a simple but effective strategy: keep the aliens on their toes. Every move they made, every attack was carefully planned to confuse and disrupt the alien fleet, and it was working. The aliens didn't know what to expect next. They'd underestimated the humans, and now they were starting to pay for it. In the heat of battle, Lieutenant Williams turned to Carter. "They're breaking formation, Captain. They don't know how to handle this. We've got them." Carter smiled, a rare moment of relief. "Good, let's keep pushing them." But the aliens weren't ready to give up. They quickly regrouped, bringing their massive warships into a tighter formation. They began to adapt to the human ships' movements, realizing that the humans were relying on speed and unpredictability. The battle turned into a game of cat and mouse, with both sides trading shots, trying to outmaneuver the other. Carter watched as the alien ships began to close in on them. They had the firepower to crush his ship in an instant, but they didn't have the advantage of knowing exactly what the humans were capable of. The humans' secret weapon was their creativity, their ability to improvise, and they were using it to its fullest. "Ready the secondary systems?" Carter ordered. "Let's finish this." The human's ship, now surrounded, triggered its final surprise, a hidden device that turned the tables. With a sharp burst of energy, the ship emitted a wave that disabled several alien warships. They were momentarily paralyzed, giving the humans a brief moment to strike. In that moment, the tide began to turn. The Galactic fleet had come to Earth expecting an easy victory, but they had underestimated the humans. Earth's laughter had not been a sign of weakness, but a sign of strength. Aliens were learning that the hard way. The battle raged on, but the humans were far from giving up. The alien fleet, now starting to show signs of uncertainty, began to regroup. Their powerful ships, once so sure of their superiority, were no longer the unstoppable force they had thought they were. The humans had turned their advantage creativity into something that the aliens couldn't predict. Captain Carter stood at the front of the command center, his eyes focused on the monitors as the chaos unfolded. The alien ships were trying to reform their strategy, but the humans were always one step ahead. Every time the aliens adjusted, the human ship responded with something unexpected. It wasn't speed, firepower, or advanced technology that was winning this battle, it was the unpredictable nature of humanity. The alien fleet had underestimated Earth. They thought the humans would cower, waiting for their inevitable defeat. But instead, the humans fought back with courage, resourcefulness, something the aliens didn't have: an unbreakable will. "Captain," Lieutenant Williams said, her voice steady. "The alien ships are starting to pull back. They're confused. It looks like we've caught them off guard." Carter didn't respond immediately. He knew the aliens were struggling to understand how their powerful fleet was being held off by a single ship that shouldn't have been able to do so much. We'd been sure that the battle would be hard, but this was more than he had hoped. Stay focused," Carter said, turning to face the crew. "We can't let them regroup. Keep up the pressure." Meanwhile, far from the command center, the battle was unfolding across the skies. The human ship, despite being smaller and slower than the alien warships, moved with a strange kind of grace. It wasn't about raw power. It was about using every advantage, no matter how small. The crew of the human ship had become a well-oiled machine. Engineers worked on systems while pilots made quick, unpredictable moves that threw the aliens off course. Every time an alien ship locked onto the human ship, the humans would make a sudden change in direction, confusing the enemy targeting systems. It was as if they were playing a game of chess, but the aliens couldn't keep up with the moves. The humans weren't just reacting, they were thinking several steps ahead, using their knowledge of the environment and their surroundings to outwit the far stronger forces on board the alien flagship. Zorith, the fleet's commander, slammed his fist onto the table in frustration. He had watched as his fleet's best warships failed to make a mark on the human ship, no matter how powerful their weapons were. The humans seemed to anticipate every move. "You're being made fools of," Zoroth growled, pacing in front of his officers. "This is not what I expected from Earth. They're not supposed to be this resourceful." His second-in-command, a stoic alien named Vex, spoke up. "Sir, they are using tactics we have never seen. Their unpredictability is making our advanced weapons useless." Zorath paused, his mind racing. He had been trained to fight known enemies, to predict their actions based on their patterns. But humanity had no pattern. They didn't follow the rules the rest of the galaxy played by, and that was making the battle harder than it should have been. "We can't lose to them," Zorath said through gritted teeth. "We must break them before they gain more ground." The more the aliens tried to organize their forces, the more scattered they became. They couldn't anticipate the next move from the humans. Each time they thought they had gained an advantage, the human ship would find a new, unpredictable way to fight back. And the humans were not just fighting for survival, they were fighting for their home. Their determination was fierce, and it showed in every attack. Every move they made, as the battle wore on, Zorth's frustration grew. His fleet was powerful, yes, but it was also too reliant on its advanced technology. The humans didn't have that luxury. They had to adapt to make do with what they had, and that gave them a strength the aliens couldn't match. Back on Earth, the mood was shifting. The world watched in awe as the humans, with their outdated technology and limited resources, held their own against the mighty alien fleet. It was no longer a question of whether the humans could win, it was a question of how far they could push the aliens before the fleet would break. Reports flooded in from around the globe. From North America to Europe, Asia, and Africa, people were glued to their screens. They watched as Earth's last stand became something much more. The humans were not only surviving, they were thriving. They had become a symbol of resistance, of hope, to every corner of the planet. No one could believe what they were seeing. The Earth, once thought weak and defenseless, was showing the galaxy its true strength. The humans were learning, growing, adapting with every passing minute. They were no longer afraid. Their laughter, which had once mocked the alien threat, now echoed through the galaxies as a sign of their strength. They had turned the tables, proving that Earth was not a place to be taken lightly. The aliens had come to teach humanity a lesson, but instead were the ones being taught. Captain Carter watched the screens as the alien ships began to break apart. Some were retreating, others were firing wildly as they tried to get their bearings. He could see the confusion in their movements. He knew this was their chance. "Keep pushing forward," Carter said firmly. "This isn't over yet. We've got them right where we want them." The aliens might have had the power, but the humans had something far more powerful, something they couldn't understand. The humans had the will to fight, the strength to stand together, and the determination to show the galaxy that they were not to be underestimated. As the human ship continued its attack, it was clear that the galactic fleet was beginning to crack. The once mighty force that had come to Earth with the intent of intimidating humanity was now on the defensive, retreating into the unknown, unable to defeat a species they had laughed at just days before. The battle was turning in humanity's favor. The once mighty galactic fleet, which had arrived with such confidence, was now showing signs of defeat. Their commanders, who had expected an easy victory, were baffled by the unpredictable tactics of the human defenders. The humans had proven themselves to be far more resourceful than the aliens had anticipated. And the tables were turning quickly. On the alien flagship, Commander Zorath stood staring at the chaotic battlefield. His fleet, once so sure of its superiority, was now in disarray. The human ship, though small and seemingly outdated, had outsmarted them at every turn. It moved in ways the aliens couldn't predict, and it fought with a courage and unpredictability that was shaking the very foundation of the Galactic Fleet's confidence. "How did this happen?" Zorath muttered to himself, his voice thick with frustration. "We are the most powerful force in the galaxy, and yet we are being beaten by a species with nothing but old technology and laughter." Second in command, Vex stood beside him, unable to offer an answer. Vex, like the rest of the fleet, had underestimated humanity. The aliens had believed that their superior technology and overwhelming numbers would make quick work of Earth. But now, as the fleet's ships continued to fall, they realized they had made a grave mistake. Zorath turned to Vex. "We need to retreat. Now, if we don't, we risk losing everything." Vex hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Understood, sir." The order to retreat was given, and the alien fleet slowly began to pull back. But it wasn't an organized retreat. The alien ships, once moving as a unified force, now scattered, trying to escape the relentless attack from the humans. The damage had been done. The once proud fleet was falling apart, its commanders realizing that Earth was not the easy target. They had assumed back on Earth, the mood was one of disbelief and triumph. The humans had done it, against all odds. They had pushed back the most powerful fleet the galaxy had ever seen. People across the world were cheering, hugging, and celebrating. The streets were filled with joy and laughter, not of mockery, but of pride and relief. Humanity had stood up to a much stronger force, and one, Captain Evan Carter, stood in the control room, watching as the alien fleet retreated. It had been a long battle, and even now, he could hardly believe what he was seeing. The humans had not only survived, they had outsmarted the aliens at every turn. "We did it," Lieutenant Maria Williams said, her voice full of awe. "We really did it," Carter smiled, but he knew that this victory wasn't just about the ship or the weapons. It was about the human spirit. The humans had faced a much stronger force, one that should have crushed them. But they had fought back with creativity, determination, and unity. They had shown the aliens that Earth was not a place to be taken lightly. But Carter also knew that this victory wasn't the end. The alien fleet might have retreated, but the galaxy was watching. And while the humans had won this battle, the war was far from over. As the alien ships disappeared into the distance, Carter turned to his crew. "This isn't over. We've shown them that we can fight, but there are more challenges ahead. We can't let our guard down." The crew nodded, understanding that their work was far from finished. The Galactic Fleet had learned a harsh lesson, but there were still many threats out there. Humans had proven their worth, but they needed to be ready for whatever came next. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the world celebrated. The victory over the alien fleet was a symbol of humanity's resilience. The news outlets reported the events with disbelief. How could a small, relatively young species like humanity stand against a force as mighty as the Galactic Fleet? There they were, victorious. The President of the United States gave a speech that was broadcast across the globe. "Today we showed the galaxy that Earth is not to be underestimated. We are not just a small, weak planet. We are strong, we are clever, and we will never back down. This is just the beginning. We will continue to stand tall, united, and ready for whatever the universe throws at us." The President's words echoed through the hearts of people around the world. It faced a force that was far stronger than them, and they had won. The unity and strength of the human race had prevailed, and the galaxy was on notice. Humanity was no longer the small, insignificant species it had once been. It had proven that it could hold its own against even the most powerful forces in the universe. As the days passed, they celebrated their victory, but they also began preparing for the future. The galaxy had seen what Earth could do, and the humans knew they would have to continue to be vigilant. The battle against the alien fleet was over, but the war for humanity's place in the galaxy had just begun. The retreat of the Galactic Fleet was a turning point. The aliens had underestimated humanity, and now they knew better. And while the humans might have been outnumbered and outgunned, they had proven one thing that no weapon could defeat: the human spirit.